Hello guys, Neagat here. Welcome to another match of Littlewargame. Today on Ravaged aa4, I am playing in the top left corner with the red pieces, and I'm going against my opponent, a guest here. So I'm not quite sure who this opponent is, but you'll see that he isn't too bad in just a moment. But I'm playing against a guest here on the bottom left corner. I'm really excited to bring you this cool match. Now, before we go any further in this, a couple things I wanted to say. Um, I remember in yesterday's video, I advertised this as well. There's a tournament going on for Littlewargame, and if you've ever been interested in, playing against some really competitive people at this game and participate in a tournament, that would be a really cool way to do that. As you can see here, I just finished building this house. I'm using this worker. This is something I've recently developed in my play, where I sent this worker out to just scout out for proxies to see if there's anything going on here or anything close by to my base. And then later on, I use it to go ahead and build this castle. It does mess up a little bit of my normal timings in terms of when to send out workers to build again, when I can queue up another worker for to build while waiting for this to happen. But it doesn't mess things up too bad. Um, Everything considered, I got some more information about what's going on outside my base, and it doesn't mess things up too much. In terms of timing, I believe everything is a-okay. I bring out this worker to get this tower out. So, and going for castle first is the most economical opening that one could go for. It's also pretty greedy in the sense of you don't get an army very quickly. And so what I like to do is I like to have this tower up for defense. It keeps away, like, by the time it's finished building, which should be at 3 minutes, it keeps away wolves that were just produced by an opponent, and hopefully by this point, it would have been up by the time that this raider came. I'm sure that sending out this worker delayed the timing a little bit because I lost a couple resources that I could have been mining, but I eventually get it up, and it takes down the raider there for me. Pretty good stuff so far. Looks like my opponent is playing pretty standard. Instead of going for a second raider, he just goes into normal soldier and archer units outside of his first barracks, and then right into his first castle. So pretty economical opening. He's been able to scout, if we look at our guest's information, he's been able to scout that I'm going for a wolf den. He doesn't know I'm going for 2 of them at this point, but he does know that I'm going into wolves, which is pretty good for him. In my experience, barrack units have been pretty good against wolf snakes. The fact that the soldiers are pretty meaty and the archers are decent, pretty good units, I think, in terms of DPS and survivability. Pretty good against wolves. So what I do at this point is I make a single wolf. I queue any future wolf production on this guy. I also hotkey him to number 3 so that I can, when I do my rotation of production and building and microing up, I also have control over this wolf a little bit better. And this guy is really out here just to check to see if my opponent is going for any greedy third base, to see what the strength size or the army size of my opponent is at that point. And then whether I can do a little bit of harassment, that's always an option for me. So my opponent, very content to sit back on 2 bases at the moment, and simply macro up, getting his, early forge. This is very interesting. I don't think I've seen very many opponents do this. This is actually, I don't think this is recommended for anyone to do either. I believe the recommended build is to add 2 more barracks so that you have a total of 3 barracks producing units, producing workers, and then don't worry about forges or upgrades until you're on your 3rd or 4th base. That's usually what I've seen. So playing Beast rather, I'm pretty confident my opponent has a more quality army than I do. Like if this whole army was fighting my whole army, I'm pretty confident he would win. His archers would be able to really dish damage. But at this point, I'm seeing that my opponent is very content to just sit back and not have to worry about fighting. And so at this point, the next time I can, I build a 3rd base. And as you can see, there's this terrible supply block that I really should be trying my best to get out of my play. So as you can see, I'm building houses. I'll get 10 more supply now, and then I've already have this house up to build. At this point, I start up snakes. I'm pretty confident we're going to have an engagement pretty soon. He's probably going to want to get his 3rd base relatively soon as well. This is also another interesting thing or decision that my opponent decides to go for this bird here for additional scouting information. I guess it is an option, but it's probably not a good allocation of your resources at the beginning of the game. Probably would rather use that time to go into workers. And so I see this fight happening. His army comes out and it's pretty well exposed, and immediately I go for this surround. Absolutely surrounding his army, and I'm pretty confident to just keep this fight going. I could retreat, I could go back, but I want to make sure that I kill as many of his units as possible, and really crush his army and force him onto the back foot. As you can see, I'm content with that battle because I'm on 3 bases and I know my opponent is only on 2. And so I'm thinking, my opponent at this point, he's been playing very defensively already. So the fact that he just lost this army means that he's going to want to keep playing defensively. So I say, okay, that's all right. I'm gonna start adding snakes to my composition. I'm going to keep macroing up, getting more supply than my opponent can have. And I'm going to continue this development. As you can see, I'm placing my units in a position where if this army comes out, I immediately have, this flank. I immediately have his units flanked and surrounded, just like I did in that previous engagement. All good things. At this point, this is where it gets really interesting. I'm trying to produce as much as possible, but after, say half of when my production is halfway through, I'll have 600 minerals, and I don't want to queue up things. That's when I really should be going for more production, another base, as you can see, a 4th base, and constantly, working on this development. As you can see, one soldier just exposed here. So what I decide to do is I decide to bait his army out and then send in this kind of run-by force to really dish damage. And with that, as you can see, I leave half of my army really exposed. So this is something I'll have to think about in my future play, whether this is something I really should be doing or not. As you can see, I'm obviously not microing this well. I don't think he's lost any workers at this point, and basically all I've done is just weakened my army that was going to fight his army in half, and I really didn't gain anything from that. So I think in the future, if I decide that I'm going to fight his army, I probably should do that full force. I believe the technical term, or the army term, is called victory or defeat in detail, where if you're able to get a larger part of your army to fight a smaller part of his army, even though the opponent might have a larger total army, the fact that you'll win those smaller skirmishes against smaller portions of your opponent's battle means that you'll be able to defeat your opponent eventually because of the fact that you're able to work in your numbers. As you can see, I'm going for this fight, and at this point, I have so many resources coming in that I'm just thinking, you know, I need to make sure to put some constant aggression on from this point on. And so that's basically what I'm trying to do with these snakes and with these wolves, just going straight in. Especially when I saw that he got his third base up, I was thinking, okay, we can't do that, or we can't really allow that to happen. I want to be in the position where he's stuck on two bases, and where I can go to as many bases as I want, producing as much as I want, and really forcing him to be in a not in a very very unhappy position. And so as you can see, you know, my unit composition comes. I believe I have all my units queued here. I probably should have had them queued here at this opening, at this mouth. And basically my whole idea is to run units by his third base until that third base is defeated, and then he gets stuck back on two bases again. You can see again here my production is up to 1,000, and that's rough because I've added all these production these wolf dens to help me in my production, and I'm still constantly, you know, in the getting too many resources. And so what I believe I decide to do here is I decide to go for upgrades, and you'll see that I go for a lot of upgrades. Not at this point, but I will end up going for a lot of upgrades, which really will turn the fight in my favor at some point. Okay, so as you can see, I'm really committed to this fight. Probably overly committed. You know, I haven't taken down this tower yet. He just wiped out all my snakes, all my composition here. But I know that I'm constantly producing, right? I've got all this production going on at home, and they're queued up. They're constantly coming. So my idea is to go for this constant harassment of my opponent. As you can see at home, like I was saying, I try to get a total of 5 upgrade facilities. I believe they're called animal testing centers, right? And so what I'm trying to do with that is I'm trying to get all my resources to work for me, to get them all on the map, and basically empty my pockets so that I can win this game, right? And so at this point, I've queued all my units to be here, and when these wolves arrived, I was able to get a pretty good flank here. I think my opponent at this point should be thinking about getting a 4th base, probably this one here, especially when his army was out and occupying my army. Should have given him the time to breathe and really be able to focus on his macro again. Make sure he gets whatever tech he needs. Make sure he gets whatever army he needs or upgrades he needs, and then move forward from that point on. For me, what I decide to do is I decide to basically close off that option. If that's what he wanted to do, I basically deny it by going for this force here. At this point, I also close off this option for him by, if he sends a worker to build a fourth base, that's closed off. At this point, he's going for my workers here. I send some units to try and deal with this. And you know, I probably should have seen this a lot sooner. The fact that he was coming after my workers here. And this is a nice run by. I like this option by him. I have this army to. I didn't know that he was going to move out, but I had this army ready in case he was. As you can see, I have more units queued there. I'm constantly producing. Again, I get stuck at almost 1,000 supply, and I'm producing like 5 upgrades at the same time. They're all attack upgrades too, and so as you can see, like when I made these, I probably dumped 1,000 resources into that. And for me, this whole struggle has been keeping my resources low, making sure that I'm on the map, I'm present, and then that I make sure that I don't get supply blocked, that I have the appropriate amount of bases, and even now I'm trying to get rid of my resources by going for additional bases. I go for this fight again. This is probably won't work, but the fact that my upgrades are finishing up now means that my units have a lot more survivability, a lot more damage. And so again, that constant production is really good for me because as he's pressing in, units are pressing against him, like in waves too, which is really exciting. Really exciting. As you can see, this fight closes off, especially now that I have +4 attack damage in my favor. That's pretty fantastic upgrades. These all finished. These were all attack upgrades, and they all finished up. And at this point, it just feels like my opponent is butter. Like I'm really a hot knife going through butter, and especially with these snakes, your attack speed is so quick that it's almost no match anymore. My opponent going for this early upgrade. Let's go ahead and see what kind of upgrades he has. So he has a couple upgrades. Oh yeah, so he has 4 offensive upgrades that he's been racking up or racking on, but that hasn't been doing him too well. At this point, I'm just moving onto his army, onto his buildings and everything, and he's in a really rough spot. If he fights with these workers, he's gonna lose them all because my units are upgraded. Oh, I guess the workers do get the upgrade, but as you can just see, absolutely destroying them with my snakes. Absolutely destroying them. Really no contest when I was able to keep my opponent basically stuck on 4 bases here. At this point, I make sure to check to see if he has a 4th base or not. He really doesn't, even though he has the castle down and ready to go, but no mining, and I send this force to deal with that. As you can pretty much see it's pretty much GG, and my opponent does GG out at that point. That was exciting. Tagging towards dragons, really using these upgrades to my advantage, and then getting to use that maneuverability, that that flank that the beast is able to have to really suppress my opponent from being able to do anything. It was a very good game. I felt like I played this one really well, and I felt like my opponent played it well as well too. All right, if you guys enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like. I make content for this game every single day, so any support, comments, subscribing, anything that you guys do is really great. Is really encouraging too. So, all right, guys, bye bye.